What's going on, Rovers? It's Mr. Shalat back with another video. We're continuing on with our Automoblox project, and today we're going to be looking at the axle peg. All right, so we're firing through these different parts. Today we're going to be looking at the axle peg. Let me share out my screen, and we will take a look. All right, so we are starting off with a blank document. We can go ahead and turn off some of our planes there. We only really need the front view. That's where we're going to be drawing. Looking at our drawings, which as we scroll down our working documents here, all right, here is the axle peg, all right, and if I zoom in on this a little bit, okay, what we can't do, all right, when we first look at this thing, and blow this up a little bit, okay, what we can't do when we're working on this document is we can't look at this as 3 or 4 separate circles and just using the extrude command. That's something that we've been doing, okay? And when we look at this, we have this cylinder here, and then there's this larger cylinder, and then there's a smaller cylinder. But when we really take a look at this, all right, here at this drawing here, and some of the numbers are difficult to read on this drawing, so I've actually redone this drawing down here so we can read it a little easier. All right. Whenever you have these horizontal lines that you see on this drawing, okay, these lines that are going across, all right, that's what we call a section view. You're actually looking at the center, okay, of that long axle peg. So if we took this axle peg and I took a saw and I cut right down the middle, and we want to look at the inside of it, that's what this shape is. Okay, you got to picture that this thing was cut directly in half. All right. Now, what we will notice, okay, is that this is a straight surface and this is a straight surface. So we could have gotten away with doing some extrudes there. However, if you take a look here, it's heading down on an angle. Okay, so it's tapered. All right, and why does it do that? Well, this part over here is what gets glued inside the truck. And then this part sticks out of the truck, which is where the wheel would come and clip on. Well, they have this taper down so the plastic can bend and snap into that wheel and then be able to hold the rim and then eventually the tire as well. Okay. Well, we can't do this with extrudes because this comes down on an angle here and we have no idea what that angle is. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're actually just going to draw this piece. Okay. If you look at this thing, it looks like a big letter I. We only have to draw half of that because this top half is the same as the bottom half. It almost looks like it's mirrored, okay, because it is basically mirrored. The top half and the bottom half are the exact replica of one another. It's that same piece that goes all the way around. And we're going to learn about a new tool, what to do with this rather than just mirror it, okay? So as we start to break this down, we're only going to be drawing the blue part. So this area that I've highlighted here in blue, that is the area that you're going to end up sketching over in OnShape. All right, now as we go to do this, we are going to start, let's say, from right here at this point, okay, right here. And what we want to do, all right, the way this drawing starts is this line comes straight up and down, okay, comes straight up. And from there, where it comes up, we need to know that height. But the problem is they don't tell us what that height is. They tell us what the diameter of that inside circle is. Okay, the diameter of that circle is 0.19. So if I only need half of that from here to here, we would take half of 0.19, and that's going to give us the number we need. So the first line I'll draw will be a vertical line that will be 0.19 divided by 2. And then I have to come across straight 0.33. So those are the first two lines we're going to draw. We'll come over, all right, and we'll start our sketch. I'll move this out of the way here. We'll look at this straight on, okay? And I'm going to draw my first line. I'll even snap to that origin point there in the center. I'm going to draw a straight vertical line, okay? And then I'm going to have a line that comes across, all right? Let's throw some dimensions on that. Okay, so we'll get our dimensioning tool. Okay, that first line is going to be 0.19 and then divided by 2. You can actually type the equation in. Now, if you know what any of these dimensions are, you could just type the number in. All right, so it's 0.19 divided by 2, and I'll hit enter, which actually is 0.095. All right, and then coming across, the length of that line we said is going to be 0.33. Okay, so those are our first two lines. We go up, we go to the right. Now, what's our next line? We'll look back at our drawings. Okay, and on this, it is a straight vertical line. Okay, and that straight vertical line, we don't get that information. But what we do know is from here to here is 0.19, and from here to here is 0.25. Okay, so if we take those two numbers and we subtract them, the difference of them is 0.06. Okay, so it's 0.06. However, we need half of that number. All right, so we had 0.19 and this is 0.25. So the subtracted difference is 0.06, but we need half of that because we're only drawing half of the drawing. All right, so I'm going to come in, I'm going to draw a straight vertical line. All right, and the dimension of that line coming up should be 0.06 divided by 2. And again, if you know what the answer is, you could just type what the answer is. Otherwise, let OnShape do the calculation. The next thing we have is a line that comes across horizontally. So I'm going to make sure I have my line tool. All right, and I have a straight line that comes across to the right. How big is that line? Well, when we look, okay, the distance from here to here, okay, they're telling us is 0.05. That's going to be the number we need. So we can go ahead and throw a dimension on that. Okay, 0.05. Next up, we have a straight vertical line. Okay, this straight vertical line here, we have to subtract the difference of these two. So we have 0.29 and 0.25. We subtract the difference of those two numbers. It's 0.04, and we have to divide that in half. Okay, so we have a straight vertical line. Go ahead and sketch that in. And we'll throw some dimensions on it. And remember, it's 0.04 divided by 2. Go ahead and hit enter, and that sketches it back. All right. Next, looking at our drawing here, we have this long line here. Okay, this long line. They do not tell us what the dimension of that line is. Okay, so what we are going to do is use the information that they do give us to figure out that information. So what they're telling us over here is all these dimensions. So 0.25 and 0.19, 0.07 gets us to this point. Okay, so those numbers there add us up to there, but they don't tell us the distance from here to here. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll type in 0.88, which is the length of the whole shape, and subtract each of those numbers, and the answer will be what the length of that line should have been. Okay, so we're going to go 0.88 minus 0.25 minus 0.19. Okay, go ahead and sketch that in. Okay, we'll get some dimensions on there. So we go 0.88 minus 0.25 minus 0.19 minus, what was the last number? 0.07. Okay, so we added those three numbers there, subtracting them from the overall. Okay, minus 0.07. Hit enter, does the calculation. In this case, it's 0.37. Looking good. Okay, next we're going to draw a vertical line. So I'll get my line tool, click there, draw straight up and down. Let's throw some dimensions on that. Okay, so as we go to dimension that, okay, from here to here, we need to know that distance. And what they're telling us is this distance right here and this distance right here, we're going to use the same number. They don't necessarily tell us that, but if we subtract those two numbers, okay, 0.4 and 0.3, this span here is that distance, okay? So it would be 0.1 coming down, okay? But we need half of that, okay? So 0.1, however, we need half of that. So we're going to type in 0.1 minus, oops, 0.1 divided by 2. Should be 0.05, looks good. We'll draw another line, okay? The next line on there comes straight across, okay? We do need to dimension that. So that line coming across here, they tell us is 0.07. So that's the number we need to type in there, 0.07, hit enter. Now, we are at a point when we're looking at this drawing, we've gotten to here, all right? And we can come down. We already know what that number is going to be because we already did the calculation, okay? So we can go ahead and draw this line down, okay? Throw some dimensions on that. That's going to be that 0.05. All right. And then that's basically it. That's all we can do. And what do I mean by that? Well, we need to draw a line that comes down on an angle over to this point. However, we don't know what angle that is. So we have no idea the length of that line. We have to basically draw the rest of this thing and get to this point, and then we can draw that and basically connect the dots. We don't know what the angle is, so that's not a line we can sketch right now. Basically, we have done, if we started here and we went around, we got to here, there's nothing else we can do. We got to go back and finish this thing off. So we're going to come over and then up and then over and up, and we're going to follow that path now, all right, to finish the rest of this shape. So if we are here, we now need to come over to this point, this midway point. They do not tell us what the length of this line is. They do not give us enough information on the drawing. And what I'm going to tell you is to use this 0.07 number. So we are going to say from here to here, this 0.07, that's the number we're going to use because quite frankly, they don't give you enough information in order to get to that line, okay? So we'll use 0.07 coming across. From where we're at here, come straight across, okay? And we can go ahead and throw some dimensions on that, 0.07. And then you have our line tool, and we have a line that comes straight up, okay? How tall is that line? Okay, so from here up, they're telling us that inside diameter is 0.19. Okay, well, we know what that number is because on this side it was 0.192. So they're saying the span from here to here and from here to here are exactly the same. So we're going to use that information. We're going to use that 0.19, right? So we'll come over and go ahead and make that 0.19 divided by 2. Okay, gets us down to that 0.095. We can move this dimension out of the way here. It's a little in the way. Okay. Next, when we go to draw from here, we got a straight line that comes across. All right. And we got to know what is the dimension of that line that comes across looking at our drawing. Okay. So from here to here, the length of that line is actually listed up top here. It's that 0.19. So from here to here is 0.19. Then we have a straight vertical line, which we'll figure out in a minute, right? So it's going to be 0.19 on the length. And then we're going to draw a straight vertical line. Off of that, we need to know what the length of that line is. Okay, so let's switch back over to figure that out. So we need to know the distance from here to here. They're saying the inside diameter is 0.19. They're saying this diameter up to this point is 0.25. I subtract the difference of those two, which is 0.06, and we only need half of that. So we're going to cut that number in half. So we would type 0.06, and we would divide that by 2. All right. From there, we take our line tool. We're coming over towards the left. Okay. We need to know the length of that line. So we're going to dimension. Okay. How long is that particular line? So we are at this point right now, we're coming all the way over to the edge. Well, up here, they tell us that dimension is 0.25. So from here to here is 0.25. That's the number we're going to need, 0.25. All right. It kind of ran off the page. So if I zoom out and zoom back in, now I can get over to here. The next line that we have, oops. We get back in here. We have a straight vertical line. What is the size of that line that we just drew? Well, we'll look at our drawings. All right, and the distance from here to here is going to be the difference of these two. So 0.25 and 0.30, we subtract those two, it's 0.05, and then it would be half of 0.05. So we're going to take 0.05 and divide that by 2. So basically every measurement you're getting here, you have to divide it by 2. All right, we're at that point. We're going to come over in this direction. Okay, what is the length of that line coming across? Let's see if they dimension that for us. So from here to here, the straight vertical line coming across has a distance of 0.05, they're telling us. And then the drop to go down from here to here is dimensioned 0.01. So 0.05 over and 0.01 on the drop. Okay, so we'll go 0.05, and then we draw a vertical line that's going to go straight up and down. Okay, and we have to get some dimensions on that. And it's 0.01. Perfect. All right. After we have that, we now can draw our final line because we have gotten to this point and to our point over here. We know what the angle is going to be now. All we have to do is just connect those 2 points. Okay. And you'll see that this line comes down ever so slightly, just on a small little slant. Okay. And that's going to give us enough of a bevel there for what we need. All right. So at this point, we are finished with the drawing. When I check OK, all right, I realized that there was a whole lot of dimensions on this drawing, very difficult to see. Okay. But as long as you just follow the process and make sure you're getting to all the different points, all right, you'll get it. All right. You just have to break it down line by line. Remember, you're dividing every dimension by 2. So now we are done. Okay. We are done. Let's take a look at this thing in our ISO view here. Okay. We could turn off our front work plane. All right. And that's what we have. Okay. Now, what do we do? Well, we're not going to use mirror because a mirror would just give us this on the bottom. Okay. We would only have 2. What we need this thing to do is to go all the way around in a circle. Right. The tool that we have never used before, but now I'm introducing it to you, is called the revolve command. Okay. So right next to extrude, you have something called revolve. And how this works is when you select revolve, it wants you to select the sketch. So in this scenario, since the sketch, we only have 1, I'm going to go ahead and click on the sketch. You'll notice that it highlights there in yellow. All right. And now we are ready to revolve this. Basically, we're going to take this and go around 360 degrees of this same sketch. So watch what happens here. Okay. Right where it says revolve axis, I'm going to tap on revolve axis. And now it wants you to pick the line that it's going to rotate around. If you think in terms of mirror, okay, you would draw something and then you had a mirror line and then it would duplicate that on the other side. All right. Well, now what we're doing is we're selecting the line. We want this thing to rotate around. So if I select this bottom line, which is our center line, all right, if I select that, look what happens. Bam, it's done. And all it did, it took that sketch, zoom out a little bit here. Okay. It takes that sketch and it just rotates it around 360 degrees. That's exactly what we were looking for. Okay. Now, this did a full revolve. So if you look here, okay, we have this set to full, which is 360 degrees. It goes all the way around in a circle. Well, if you didn't want that, maybe you only wanted it to go around a quarter of the way, what we could do is instead of full, okay, you could choose one direction. And now, if we look, it's only rotating just a little bit. Right now it's going 30 degrees. Well, if I would type in 90 degrees, okay, hit enter. All right, now it went a quarter of the way, okay, because 360 divided by 4 is 90. All right. If I wanted it to go all halfway, I could type in 180. Okay, go ahead and hit enter. Now it's going half the distance. It's just taking that and rotating it around. As you can see, it's the same on the other side there. Okay, well, we're going to change that back to full because we want it to go around a full 360. Okay, just like we have it. Looks good. Okay, and the question is, are we done? And no, we're not done. Okay, because we got to look back at our drawing, right? And when we look over here at the drawing and we scroll back up, we could see that this has a notch cut out of it. Okay, so right here in the middle, there is a notch. Okay, and the reason for that is that plastic needs to be able to flex to be able to snap that wheel on, or bend to take it off. So there has to be a little bit of give in the plastic, whereas back here, that's solid glued back into the wood. Up front, this needs to flex a little bit. So they have this little break here, and this break is 0.04 wide by 0.2 on the depth. 0.04 wide, 0.2 on the depth. Looking back at our drawing, okay, which it's going to happen over here on this side, you have to do a sketch, but none of this highlights. The only thing that will highlight is the flat surface. So over here on this side, when I select it, now I can actually do a sketch on a flat surface. So we're looking at this thing straight on, all right? And how I would start this off is I would come in and I would draw a line, okay? So I would, you could start right here in the middle and draw a vertical line. Okay, and you could do the same thing, start from here and come down. All right. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, I'm actually going to highlight both of those lines there and actually right click in construction, right click in construction, because we need to know where dead center is. Okay, when we put this notch in here, we got to make sure that it is dead center. Okay, because if it's off center, then it's not going to be right in the middle, and we want these to be right on top of one another, centered. So we got to have that center line there. Construction, that's going to help us be able to get this box on there. Okay, so I'm going to come in. I'm actually going to draw a box now. I've got my rectangle tool. All right, and then I'll just come in and sketch this out. Oops, still got construction on. Let's back it up. All right, let's try it again. Okay. And if you remember that this from side to side here is 0.04. And you'll notice I drew this thing gigantic. You don't have to make it that big, but I'm going to go ahead and throw some dimensions on this. So from this center line over here, I'm going to make that 0.02. And then on this side as well, from here to here, I'll make that 0.02. All right. Just double check across the top. We'll dimension that needs to be 0.04, which it is. That's a driven dimension. You'll see it's grayed out. It's driven because we already told it what it had to be. Okay, it was forced and calculated there. So that's basically what we're looking at right now. We've got our sketch. We know we have dimensioned it right. It needs to be 0.04 wide. The depth going in is 0.2. Okay, so we're finished with our sketch. We're now ready to extrude it. So if I choose extrude and I just come in and, I select each of these surfaces here. Okay, it is going the wrong way, so I'll hit the arrow going the opposite way. I want to remove material, so you got to make sure you're on the remove tool. Unfortunately, it's going all the way through the shape right now, and that's because we're telling it to go through an inch. The shape, remember, was only 0.88 in depth, so that's not the right number. We have to type in 0.2, which is the depth of our little cutout here, and then go ahead and press enter, and it will do the cut for us, and we are good. There is our notch. Okay, it is 0.04 wide by 0.2 on the depth. This thing is done, okay? And at this point, I would come over and right click, and I change the appearance, and we're gonna go ahead and make this sucker green. Pick a green that you think looks good, all right? And then down at the bottom, you're gonna rename the file. So instead of it being called Part Studio, we would call this Axle Peg, okay? And that's the axle peg, okay? We learned the revolve command, and you just have to make sure you're taking all of your dimensions, okay? And make sure you're cutting them all in half, all right? If you have questions about this drawing, please pause, rewind, and then take a look if you forgot on how to do something. I hope this video was helpful, and I will see you soon. Take care. Good luck, Rovers.